we should not forget that there are countries who are not holding Russia accountable, and they don't really see the war against Ukraine as a crucial, moral issue. Sanctions are obviously a very important tool that currently the West obtains in terms of fighting against Russian aggression against Ukraine. And sanctions will remain very important because, as we know, since the beginning of the war, and now we are approaching the second anniversary since the beginning of the war, a number of sanctions have been imposed. But Russia, in a way, has managed to somehow get away and recover at least part of its economy because of its reliance on alternative markets. And when it comes to Western sanctions as well, there are certain loopholes that are very important to be closed in terms of limiting Russia's capability to continue this war in a longer-term perspective. UK has been indeed at a forefront in terms of imposing sanctions against Russia, but I think it is very important to focus on the military-industrial capabilities and to make sure that Russia's further efforts that they are very much willing to put into continuing the war against Ukraine will be limited in terms of closing the current gaps and loopholes that the Western sanctions have, and also limiting as much as possible Russia's military-industrial capability to continue the war in Ukraine. And another important area would be to focus on the sources of revenue for the Russian economy. And in this case, of course, there are a number of areas where the West can become tougher when it comes to their further sanctions against Russia. And one more important question is the Western Reserve banks that are currently holding $300 billion in Russian sovereign assets. So there has been, of course, much discussion about whether or not the Western government should proceed and seize these assets that are currently frozen and redirect them in terms of Ukraine's reconstruction.
What do you think would happen if the Western governments mandated this, they made it happen? How would Russia react? What kind of impact would it have on not just Russian oligarchs, the government and its ability to fund the war?
Yes, well, that would be a very important step from the Western side. Of course, Russian reaction will be as expected. They will be very much frustrated by it. But I think at this point, Putin is, in a way, ready to that the West will become possibly tougher, because we have seen a couple of days ago the death of the opposition leader Alexei Navalny has caused a lot of criticism, obviously, as it was expected in the West, and Western leaders have been very much open in terms of blaming the Russian government, and in this case, of course, Vladimir Putin in the death of Alexei Navalny. So I think against the background of the recent developments, Russia expects that the West will scale up the sanctions. And I don't really think that there are certain red lines when it comes to the Western reluctance or the ability to act, because Putin does not really leave any space for engaging in any sort of rational discussions, conversations, or any sort of diplomatic attempts to agree on certain things with the West. I think he acts very provocatively. So in that sense, I think even the option of using this $300 billion is on the table.
Right. I see also that the EU is announcing sanctions on Chinese and Indian companies that are doing business with Russia. And of course, President Biden and his administration will announce new sanctions on the second anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But doesn't the fact that Russia is still trading very robustly in a variety of sectors show that although it doesn't have friends in Europe or in the US, it has plenty of friends in the Middle East, China, South Asia, and of course, Africa and Latin America. We are now in a multipolar world, which is why these sanctions have not bitten to the extent that Europe and the USA desire.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. Regardless of the fact that there is a strong Western coalition that is willing to impose further sanctions on Russia, and we have seen a number of packages from the European Union, sanctions packages against Russia. But at the same time, we should not forget that there are countries who are not holding Russia accountable, and they don't really see the war against Ukraine as a crucial, moral issue. So, for example, Iran, North Korea, they have been supplying Russia with weapons, which has been quite crucial in terms of Russian ability to continue striking Ukrainian assets, cities. So in that sense, of course, this is one of the main problematic areas from the Western perspective. Of course, it's a challenge how to deal with this issue and how to hold the countries, the so-called third countries, accountable, because they are indirectly or directly enabling Russia and providing Russia with further capabilities to continue the war against Ukraine. So I think this will indeed remain one of the main challenges for the West. And one of the key issues, I guess, that each one of us is expecting to hear would be what sort of sanctions the U.S. will impose tomorrow. And Biden has kept it as a secret. He didn't really disclose much details of the sanctions package, but I would expect that this would go beyond targeting specific individuals. This will possibly include specific individuals as well, but individual sanctions are not, in this case, decisive. And as I mentioned, I think we should possibly expect a number of sanctions targeting Russia's defense and industrial bases.